There are 5 things that I want to talk about today in choosing a planner. The first is price, the second is portfolio, the third is process, then performance and personality.
Live your life within the moment, and don't go wait until the morning.
Welcome to The Wedding Plan. My name is Tyler Spire, and me and my team produce bespoke events across the globe. This podcast is where I share key advice for planning your own wedding, as well as behind-the-scenes adventures and stories from the events we produce. Hey friends, welcome to The Wedding Plan. And so far this season, we have been talking about the beginning of the wedding planning process, setting the intention, choosing the venue, working on the guest list, talking about the budget. And now today we are talking about choosing a wedding planner. And I've said this every episode so far, and I'm going to say it again. All 5 of these things are often happening at the exact same time. Sometimes you're choosing your venue and then working on the guest list and then you're consulting planners. Sometimes the planner is the very first call. I like to tell my couples that all 5 of these are sort of happening simultaneously. Tell some of my couples you're signing with your venue and your planner on the same day and the guest list has been started and kind of all of this is going at the same time. There are other planners, that'll say, no, you sign with the planner and then make all these decisions. But realistically, guys, as you're choosing your planner, as you're choosing your venue, as you're developing your guest list, all of that is often contingent on what you can afford to do and the budget and all of that. And as you're choosing these things as a couple, you need to know what your priorities are, right? If your top priorities are the whole family needs to be together, then you're not going to choose a teeny tiny venue in the middle of nowhere that your family can't get to, especially if your family has a lot of elderly people or things like that, right? You're going to be making these decisions kind of all in tandem. And so today, guys, we're going to talk about the planner. Now, I'm a wedding planner myself, and so this is an area that's near and dear to my heart. And the very first thing I want to say is what I love about this industry is that there are so many different, unique, amazingly talented people in it that all do things super differently. And that makes sense, right? Because there's couples that are so different. And what I love about that is there is a right person out there for you. And I tell this to people that I am coaching or other people in the industry, like you as an industry professional are not for everyone. And that's a good thing because you are for the people that you will be serving. And so if you are a couple and you're like thinking about, hiring a planner, I highly, highly, highly recommend having a planner. I do understand that there are some couples whose budgets do not permit having a planner. And if you cannot afford a planner, you need to have a designated person who is running point and logistics on your big day. If you're having a smaller wedding, if you're really trying to stay within your budget, I respect that. And I think that making smart financial choices is really important as a couple. And my wife and I work really hard to do that ourselves in our own life, right? And there are some times where we just can't afford something, or we decide, nope, we could afford this, but we are going to save the money. But what I will say is no matter what, you need to have someone that is not yourselves and not your parents, that is a point person on the big day, because otherwise you are going to be running point on your day and not able to step in and sit down and relax and be present. But this episode is not about finding that friend or family member to do that. This is about hiring a planner. I'm going to break it down to the basics and take you guys through the decision in hiring a planner. So in the industry as it stands, despite all the, diversity of services and ways people do things, it essentially boils down to this. There's 3 kinds of planners. There's month of planners, and I'm skipping day of, by the way, because I don't think anybody can just show up the morning of your wedding without having worked with you that whole month before and just run the day. Run from the word day of. Month of at least makes sense. 30 days out, that person is jumping in. You've done all the planning. And now at 30 days out from your wedding, they're sitting down with you and they're reviewing the contracts, they're reviewing the timeline, they're maybe building a few things, they're getting involved, making sure no loose ends are out there, and then they are executing the day of the wedding. You are the planner, they are the coordinator. They're making it happen the month of so that you can relax and enjoy. If you are struggling to afford a planner, this is kind of like the minimum I would suggest. Again, someone to take over for that month that knows what they're doing and is going to take care of you so you can be present. Then there's partial planning. Now, partial planning is going to look different for different planners. Some partial planners jump in at 6 months out. Some jump in at 3 months out. Some jump in a lot further in advance, but they're only responsible for certain things. So every planner is a little different, but the best way to think about partial planning is they're working with you a little bit throughout the process. You are still planning most of your wedding. Usually with a partial planner, they're jumping in on some of the big decisions, often with like rentals or things like that, but maybe they're not jumping in on things like photography, hair and makeup, music. And again, every planner is different and has a different process, but partial is limited communication throughout the process, and then they're taking care of you the day of. Finally, there's all-inclusive planners. This is what our company does. All-inclusive planners start with you from the very beginning, often in helping you choose the venue. And then they take you through booking every single vendor in the process, deciding what, helping you decide music, photography, hair and makeup, rentals, linens, lighting, like you name it, transportation, right? They are part of the conversation from start to finish. They are planning your wedding. They are leading the charge. They are helping you make each and every decision. I like to tell my couples, you will ultimately steer your budget. We will present you with options throughout and say, like, here's this option, here's option A, B, and C, here's what they cost, they're available, here's the pros and cons, and then the client ultimately makes the decision. And that's typically how it goes for us. Although we have some clients that are like, I don't know, just like choose a transportation company that fits within my budget and go. And we do that for them. But with an all-inclusive planner, they are leading the charge. If it works within your budget to have an all-inclusive planner, I highly recommend it. At the same time as getting married, I feel like so many of my couples are also in the middle of like finding new jobs, buying houses, relocating. Like it is so common, I feel like, when you make a big life decision to get married, for other big life decisions to kind of come your way because you're open to this big change, right? And so life gets busy and overwhelming. And quite frankly, unless you've already planned a large event of a large scale and you have experience doing that, it can be a lot jumping in. And even if you do have the experience, it's a lot, right? Like that's why I have a career, is running these kind of things for people. And so having an all-inclusive planner, I think, is amazing. Now, I will say that, again, being financially responsible, sometimes it doesn't work to have the all-inclusive planner. If you can't do the all-inclusive, I highly recommend a partial planner. Just that sounding board, that person that's just helping you throughout the process as you plan, rather than someone you're not even going to really talk to until the 30-day mark. And then again, obviously, if that doesn't work, then go with that month of coordinator, at least to take things off your plate the day of. I find that investing in at least a partial planner, and ideally an all-inclusive planner, will save so much headache because mistakes and things can be avoided. They're bringing their level of expertise to the game and helping you make sure that throughout the process, you're making like the next right choice for you guys, but also what works within the logistics and framework of the day. There are 5 things that I want to talk about today in choosing a planner. The first is price. The second is portfolio. The third is process, then performance and personality. 5 Ps. Do you like that? So the first is price. And I kind of alluded to this in the different kinds of planners, but there's different price points, right? There's obviously going to be a different price point from someone that's just jumping in the month of to coordinate, to someone who's doing a little bit more work, to someone who's doing all inclusive. There are different pricing models out there. Some planners charge a fixed fee. This is when they give you a price, and that is the price, and that's what it is. And there are other planners that charge a percentage of the budget, much like a contractor on a construction project, especially as you get into much higher budget weddings and planners that produce much higher budgets. They are pricing on a percentage. And I think this totally makes sense for really big productions, because sometimes you have a client that's spending $500,000, sometimes a client spending 1.5 million. And I'm using rounded numbers right now, but you can imagine the level of production from that budget to that budget is totally different. That is a lot more vendors. Sometimes that's celebrity entertainment. Sometimes it's flying in specialty wines. Sometimes it's really over the top floral installations. Those things come with lots more logistics. Really over the top florals means potentially a really late night install, or a super early morning install, or even a super late night cleanup the day after, or another day of cleanup after, whatever it is, right? There's all these factors that go in the bigger the budget and the bigger production gets. And for a planner to do their job well and to be compensated fairly for all those extra hours, A lot of high-end planners charge on a percentage. And then some planners charge a fixed plus a percentage. Every planner's a little bit different. But as a couple going into the contract, that very first thing you need to be aware of is, what is the price? Is it a percentage? Is it a fixed fee? And how does that relate to my budget? I usually tell my clients a planner should be at a minimum around 10 to 15% of your budget. Now, that makes sense for most people. It doesn't for everyone. Every market's a little bit different. Some planners are 20% of the budget, some are less. But just as a starting point, your planner should be 10 to 15% of the budget. If you're having a $100,000 wedding, you can probably afford about $10,000 on your planner. Again, these are general terms. Every place is different. Every venue is different. Every state is different. There are different markets, different things, etc. But that's kind of a good sort of gut check or starting point. If a planner is charging $50,000 and you have $100,000, it's probably not the planner for you. They're taking up 50% of your budget. There's gonna be nothing left to do anything else with. And so the price is important, and understanding the price is important. Some planners also have other fees that you should understand, like some charge day of production fees for production staff. Some are charging travel fees or anything like that. What's important is that you read the contract and you ask good questions, so when you sign on the dotted line, you feel confident in the contract that you are signing and with the person you are signing, because there is nothing more stressful than you get your final bill as you're getting close to the wedding and it being totally different than you thought it would be. And it's so important that with your planner that you build trust. And there is nothing that hurts trust more than a big, giant, unexpected curveball due to poor communication. And so having that clear understanding from the beginning, so important. Number 2, portfolio. Every once in a while, I'll get a call from a prospective client and they'll be like, I want something that is just like so edgy and different and modern and colorful and funky. And I'm often like, well, have you looked at our portfolio, right? And I often coach them towards maybe a friend of mine or a colleague that really specializes in that kind of design. Because if you look at a planner's portfolio, you can often see what work they produce and what work they produce well. If you're wanting something super edgy and outside the box, you're probably not going to go with a planner that has a completely timeless and classic portfolio. You're kind of setting yourself up. It's like saying you want to go like buy some sort of edgy fashion and then you're going to like a classic store like Bergdorf Goodman or Saks Fifth Avenue that's having more classic styles. Like, you're not going to find what you want. And if you choose to only go there, they're not going to deliver you what you want. You're setting yourself up for potentially a headache. And so making sure that the portfolio is in alignment, I think, is super, super important. If you look at a planner's work and they have absolutely nothing that is speaking to you or making you excited or remotely reminds you of your wedding, they are probably not the planner for you. Or if you're looking at a planner that has all of those things, maybe what you're envisioning is a wedding that's in one budget range, and what you can afford is something else, and we need to just adjust the expectations. Either way, if the portfolio is not speaking to you and you cannot see your wedding turning out like anything they are doing, that is not the right fit. And again, I can't tell you how many people have even reached out to our company, or I've talked to other colleagues where people reach out and be like, this is what I want. And this is, the venue said you're a great planner. And they don't even look at the portfolio or take the time to be like, is this person's style and execution even something that I'd be interested in? Number 3 is the process. Every planner has a slightly different process. And I think that it's really important as a couple, when you have that preliminary call with a planner, to fully understand their price, to have looked at their portfolio. If you have questions about the portfolio, if you're like, hey, have you ever done anything that looks more like this or things like that, have that honest conversation. And then 3 is looking at their process. I tell my couples in our first call, this is our process, this is what we do. And I think that knowing that is really important. Some questions about the process. Are we communicating via Zoom or phone, or are all of our meetings in person? Do you do a lot of email communication? Do you text? Are you using a planning software? Are you using Google? Are you using spreadsheets? Like, what is it that you're using? What do you plan first? Then what do you plan? Like, I tell all my couples, phase 1, we do X, Y, and Z. Phase 2, then we do this. Phase 3, we do this. Phase 4 is this. And phase 5 is wedding production. And we just lay out, this is what it looks like. And I answer questions about that. So couples are like, hey, if we sign with you, this is what my process will be. Now, some couples don't ask me about that. They're like, hey, we've heard great things. We trust you. We're excited to jump on board, etc. And I'll still say, hey, this is our process. This is what we do. And I might give it a more abbreviated version. But I think it's important that people understand what is the process. I, for one, I'm not available via text 24/7 to my clients. Not only would that just be like no boundaries, but also I'm not going to be a good planner if I'm getting texts at 11 at night about a really important contract and I'm like half asleep and like, it's just not going to be, I'm not going to give my best self to that client if there's no boundary around the communication. And I will even tell clients, hey, we're going to move this conversation to email, or we're going to save this for our next meeting. Or if it's urgent, let's schedule a call tomorrow. But I don't want to miss anything. My job is to make sure that this is going seamlessly. And if we're communicating at crazy hours or things like that, then I'm going to miss something. And I don't want to miss anything for you. And then I think it's also important to ask, when do you host meetings? I tell my clients most of our meetings are during business hours because most weekends we're in production. And we can make exceptions to that. We can work with couples and we can be flexible and creative. I tell every couple there's no one recipe for how to do this because every couple is a little bit different. But I think it's important to have those expectations surrounding the process from the beginning. If you're a couple that hates new apps and new things and the planner's like, yep, you download this app and we do everything through there, then maybe that's not the right planner for you because it's just going to drive you crazy. And you knew from the beginning that's what they were going to ask you to do. And what I will say is if you are a couple getting married and this is, your first wedding, whatever, you've never done a big event, you are coming in with a fresh perspective on what works for you, but this planner is coming with seasoned experience and a process that works for them. So never as a couple go in and say, well, that process doesn't work. We're going to do it this way. Because let me tell you, unless you're already a seasoned event planner and have that experience and know how you want to do it, if you are disrupting a planner's process that they have built through years and years of hard work and experience to do what works well to create amazing events, then you are setting yourselves up for a headache of a process. Because let me tell you, every time I've allowed a client to completely disrupt my process, in the early days especially, it has been a headache because I've been worried that things are wrong. When a client changes a template or a sheet or does something, I always immediately worry, am I going to miss something? Because it's not how I'm used to seeing it. That's not to say that I'm not willing to be flexible and work with clients and do all the things, but the more a client is insisting on changing in the process, the more room there is for error in that process. And so it's really important that from the beginning, you understand the process and make sure it feels like it will be a good fit for you. Obviously, in one conversation or two, it's impossible to completely understand a process from start to finish. But you can get a good sense from someone in those first couple of calls, an idea of what it will look like and how they communicate. And you can get a good gut reading on, will that work for me or not? Number 4 is performance. I always like to tell couples, if they're considering us or any other planner, if I'm giving a friend advice on booking a planner, not only do we need to know about price, portfolio, and process, what's the next step is, what are they currently doing? If you're looking for a planner and you want to make sure it's in a region and you've never heard of this person, maybe you got the referral from the hotel, look at their website. What's current? Has it been updated recently? Look at their social channels. Is there any recent work that really speaks to you? To me, it's always a little bit of a red flag when I go to hire a vendor and there is nothing current. It's all like kind of outdated images. There's nothing it makes me wonder, are they doing anything anymore? Or are they so busy that they don't have time to update their portfolio and what's going on? Will they have time for me? And if you're a vendor listening to this and you're like, shoot, I haven't updated my stuff in a little bit, I'm not here to say that that's a major mistake. But what I am saying is I think it's important that as a couple choosing a planner that you look at recent performance. If you're really drawn to a planner and you have that conversation and you're like, hey, we went on your social and like just didn't see anything recent, you just say, hey, would you mind like sharing with us a few like iPhone pics of some recent weddings you've done? We'd love to just see like what you're currently working on to inspire us. It's not like a trying to have that conversation to be confrontational or anything, but just to be like, hey, like what are you currently doing? Because anybody can set up a pretty website. Anybody can set up a beautiful Instagram. Anybody can talk you through, well, this is my process. But one of the greatest things that speaks to a planner being good or not is, what are they currently doing and who's talking about them? when clients come to us, they'll be like, we toured this venue and they were like, oh my gosh, the venue referred us to you and said, you guys are amazing. And then we went on another venue tour and they were like, oh my gosh, you have to check out Tyler Spire. And then maybe they have the call with me and then maybe they chat with a photographer, whatever. And that person's like, oh, Tyler, we love them. The more people that are speaking to our performance help validate to the client that we are good at what we do. And so as a couple looking for a planner, I think it's important to, see recent work, but also be hearing about that work from venues and things. It is a red flag to me if you are at a venue, at a thing, and they're like, yeah, we never heard of them. And then you go to another venue and they're like, oh, we never heard, we didn't know they were still in business, or anything like that is obviously a red flag. You want people that are dynamic, engaged, and excited to move forward. And often you can see that through social channels, through recent work, and also through like venues or other people you're chatting with saying, oh my gosh, they're amazing. That is one of the best ways to get a good indicator if someone is good to work with. And then finally, probably the most important is personality. You are going to spend so much time with your planner. And if it's a partial planner or a month of coordinator, maybe less time in the process, but on your special day, minutes before it's time to go down the aisle, you're going to be looking in your planner's eye and they're going to be like, hey, deep breath. It's almost time to go. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and they'll fluff your dress or dust your suit or whatever it is, and you will get married. In that intimate moment, your planner is right there. When you walk up the aisle and you're feeling all the emotions, you have married your partner. You're feeling so much joy. Your family and friends are surrounding. Maybe you're feeling a little overwhelmed. Maybe you're just feeling ecstatic and like you want to laugh, whatever it is. Guess who's at the back of the aisle saying, you did it, guys. You got married. Come this way. You're a planner. Throughout the entire evening of one of the most important nights of your life, your planner is right there. And that is why, from the beginning, the personalities have to match. If you get on that first Zoom call or have that first meeting and you're feeling awkward or you're feeling like it's not a fit, you could have a second meeting, but that's probably a good indicator that it's not a good fit. If you are feeling comfortable, if you're feeling like you can talk to them, if you're feeling confident in them, that is a really good indicator. And the beauty is that there's so many planners out there. So if you are more introverted and you want someone who's just like really quiet and like really calming, then great. There's a planner out there that is that. If you want someone that is very like energetic and excited and building up your enthusiasm, then there's a planner for that. If you're wanting something that is so business oriented and just like delving into numbers and keeping things really pragmatic and business like, that is that. When I get clients that come to me, there are calls that I get off and I'm like, they're not going to book because they're not looking for this like joyful, excited, energetic experience. Maybe they were looking for something that's just more pragmatic and business-like. And that's great because there's someone out there for them. It was not going to be a fit from the beginning. Personality matters. I say that about several other vendors as well, but planner is probably the most important. You need to make sure that from the very beginning, you feel like your personalities will be a good fit. If the planner meets your expectations for price, they have a portfolio that's in alignment with something you could see for your day, they have a process that you feel like you can align with, they have recent good performances, you're hearing about them, all the things, and they have a personality you can align with, then it's probably the right fit for you. And you can move forward with a partner throughout the process that's also going to help you with venue, guest list, budget, setting your intention on for the day and all of that, and guiding you through all of that. So those 5 things, guys, are where we begin. And then we embark on the adventure of wedding planning.
Live your life within the moment. And don't go wait until the morning. You never know when it is over. All that I know is we'll get older. So let us dance this night away.